I feel like we need to end this one with a bang. There's got to be something we can fucking talk about.
Okay.
Where we're not just because this is, to be honest, the worst one yet.
For sure, I'd say.
This has got to be the worst one.
Yeah, well, we didn't plan.
Well, we can't plan. I'm fucking sick. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
I don't blame. We ran out of shitty comedians to talk about. There's like 3 of those guys.
All right.
And there's actually, you know what? You remember Tom Flood?
I don't.
Tom Flood, I don't even know if I wouldn't really classify him as a shitty comedian. He was like, oh, fuck, Mike Diesel.
Ooh.
How have we not talked about old Mike Diesel? Yeah. Oh, man, I'm glad I remember.
Tell that fucking story, though.
Okay, so Mike Diesel is this little fucking, he looks like, you remember that show U.S. Acres? It was it was part of Garfield and Friends.
Oh no, I don't remember.
Remember Garfield and Friends, the TV show? It was the Garfield TV show, and then it would cut to the farm scenes where there was like, the Roy, the chicken, Sheldon, and then Orson was the pig.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And Orson had 3 older brothers that were like bully pigs. So Mike Diesel looks like the bully pig older brother. He's this like stout fucking like, I think his real last name is Cuccarini. He's this like stout fucking just real
Diesel.
Just real, and it's great if you do a Bing image search for Mike Diesel. The first like 3 pictures of him. The next one's something like guy deadlifting 600 pounds, and then the one underneath that is like 3 dudes sucking each other's dicks. But so yeah, Diesel was fucking. Did you not? You don't know Diesel, Adam?
No.
Oh, you met.
I barely met, but I only came in contact with him once at an open mic.
Yeah, well, he was great. He was like a pathological liar, and he would tell these stories where they were harmless. He was like that much of a liar where you never had to worry about the stories. But he was telling. His act was fucking. He was so happy when the Iraq War started because, like, he would go on stage and he would start doing his Iraq War bit about, like, George Bush and Saddam Hussein, blah, blah, blah. And then halfway through the bit, at some point he would be like, and Ross Perot's over there, like, hey, and he would do his Ross Perot impression. And it's like, oh, you wrote these jokes 10 years ago. You're just cycling these back in.
Wait, you were doing comedy like at the beginning of the Iraq War?
No. I started in 2005. So, 2 years in.
Okay, word.
2 years into the war. Yeah, but, so Diesel, he would tell all these fucking lies. And one time he tells this story about, he's like, so I'm at a bar, right? I'm at a bar, and say anything you want to me. Say whatever you want to me. I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna have a problem with it. He's like doing that thing that guys do where they do the tough guy thing, where it's like, you say whatever you want to me, but if you come after my friends, I'll fucking kill you.
Right.
He's like, say whatever you want to me. I don't care. And there's this guy at the bar, and he's talking about your shit. He's like a shit talker, causing a ruckus or whatever. I'm not thinking about it, but then he steps on my wife's foot, and that's just a line you don't cross. So I say, you better fucking apologize, and he's refusing to apologize. So I grab him, I get him in a headlock, and I take him down to the ground, and I get him down to the ground, and I have him there, and I can feel his life slip out of my hands.
What? Yeah. He murdered someone?
because, and so people are just listening to Mike tell it because he bullshits all the time. They're like, "Go on," and he's like, "Yeah, and the wait staff, they said, Mike, we saw what happened. We'll take care of this for you." And so he told a story about how he murdered somebody at a bar, and the wait staff,
stepping on his wife's
foot.
And
the bar was like, "Hey, that's Mike Diesel, famous comedian.
Yeah,
we're gonna fucking let him go."
Doesn't he have that other thing about the advice?
He told another story about being at a fucking bar one time. It's always at a bar. He's always got these like bar stories that he tells.
This was a headliner he was working with?
Right? He's working with a young comic named William. Really good comic. Everyone knew this guy was going to be big. And he says to me, Mike, if you just took the impressions out of your act, you would be the greatest comedian I've ever seen. And that was Bill Hicks. And the best part is, he still has impressions in it.
You didn't take Bill Hicks' advice. Oh my god! I had a teacher in high school that was a former LAPD vice cop and a pathological liar. He made up stories like we would fact check a bunch of them, but one of them actually we thought was a lie, ended up to be almost true.
What was it?
He was saying that during his time in the LAPD, he worked security detail for like movies, and he's like, yeah, I was a big fan of Cosby. We smoked cigars together on set, and I was like, whoa, you worked on movies? He's like, yeah, I was in a couple movies. And we're like, what was the name of the movies that you were in? And he's like, Disco something or other. And we're like, what?
I don't remember the name.
He's and I was like, do you have the movie? He's like, oh, my fucking ex-wife, she has the movie, but yeah, I used to have it on tape, but and then it was the first time I'd ever used IMDb. I looked it up, and there was a blaxploitation movie directed by this guy Fast Black, and it was called Disco 9000, and he was a Vice Cop #2, Richard Warren. He was
that's weird. It's like
this movie.
This pathological liars. They'll have one or two stories that are real, but then they sound like bullshit like the other ones.
Well, he used to tell us stories that were like, he was like, and then she died in my arms after dropping charges from the scumbag beating and raping her. I finally came and it was too late, and I'll never forget that day, April 31st, 1968. And then we're like, my friend was like, yo, there's no April 31st. That's that's not a day.
Yeah, no, Mike told it. I forget who told me this story, but Mike had said I think it was Rob Mayer. He told Rob Mayer at a party, it was like, he's like, hey, Mike, how you been? And Mike goes, pretty good. Went fishing with the Clintons on the weekend. So he said, him and his wife me and Patience went fishing with the Clintons. And so I guess, Bill and Hillary Clinton are good friends with Mike Diesel, the booker of Wiseacres Comedy Club.
The defunct for 6 years. Wiseacres Comedy Club.
So they went fishing. And then at the party later, he sees Mike's wife, and he's like, I was hanging out with the Clintons all weekend. And Mike's standing right there, and his wife looks at Rob, and she's like, what are you talking about? And Mike just like, in The Simpsons when Homer like is talking to Flanders and his brain just like disappears or whatever. Yeah, Mike just fucking stonewalls him and pretends like it didn't happen. Mike one time he invited me to he goes he's like, I throw a party every year. It's the only time I do cocaine with my wife. It's at this party. It's called the East Coast Comics Convention, and basically every comedian on the East Coast is going to be there. Which is like, Mike, that's like 45,000 people. Is it Burning Man?
East Coast Comics Convention.
Yeah, and he goes, it's at my house out in, he lived out in West Virginia somewhere. And I did a show at Fishhead Cantina. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah. It was in like Rivera Beach or some shit.
Fishhead was in fucking Arbutus or like in Catonsville.
Yeah, that's where it was. It was Arbutus. And so the party was at Mike's house, but after that. And I drove out there. I followed Mike Stork and Cat Malone out to this fucking party, the East Coast Comics Convention. And, but I know Mike's a liar. So when he says every comedian on the East Coast should be there, I'm like, okay, like a couple of guys I'm friends with. It'll be a party, I hang out and have fun. And I get there. There is literally no one.
No, that's sad.
It's
that
Mike.
is sad. That's sad.
Mike on the couch. He's in his lazy boy with his fucking legs up, and he's got a fucking Afghan draped over his legs. And he's petting a shitty old dog, and his wife's like, come on in, And Basil White is asleep upstairs. And there's a fucking cat eating like part of like one of those long catered subs on the table.
That's a nightmare.
And I had driven from like Baltimore basically to West Virginia. Yeah, it was like an hour and a half. We drove out there, and that was the night. So we're all like getting high and shit, and it was me and Mike, Diesel, and Stork, and then I think Basil woke up, and we're like, you know how Stork is. We're like, like just go off, and he's talking about like neurotransmitters or whatever, and they're talking about like therapy and shit. And Mike says at one point, he's like, it took me a long time to find a good therapist, and I had a lot of people that tried to be nice to me, and it really took someone to just sit me down and say, no, Mike, this is what happened to you, okay? You were fucking raped. And immediately I'm like, fuck you, asshole. And he's like reenacting like the
Whoa.
scene from Good Will Hunting or whatever.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
fuck you, because that's why. Because fuck you is why,
Right,
But
right.
eventually I just had to accept it. And I mean, I know Mike's lying. He wasn't fucking raped.
Wait, you think
He's
that's
just
also
casually
a lie?
mentioning being raped.
Yeah.
as-
Yeah, but
Wait,
that's the kind of shit he would do.
wait, rewind. Wait, he was doing a scene from a movie?
Well, he's always like all of his because he's a liar, so
Yeah,
all of his
right.
reactions to things are like shit he saw in movies.
Right.
So,
That's
he's
insane.
like, and then they tried to say my coupon wasn't invalid, and I said you can't handle the truth. It's like always this dramatic interaction with people where he's like, coming out on top. But yeah, that was the best part of this. Oh, and I went down to his basement to get like a soda or something. And so he's this big fat fucking piece of shit, but he's one of those fat guys. It's like he told Andy Klein one time, somebody was talking about working out, and he tells Andy, he's like, yeah, I've been working out a lot. I'm actually down to 0.4% body fat.
Like Ray Lewis in his prime had 6% body fat.
And Andy's like, Mike, we can see you. just say that.
He was fat.
He was fat as shit. He's fucking bigger than Stavros. He was like twice the size of Stavros. He's at 0.4% body fat. That's
So
like a
no,
fucking Auschwitz victim.
that's
It's
not
like
even a-
0.4% body fat.
Yeah, like peak athletes are at 8%.
But
Yeah.
that's not that's not even like believable.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the
very
kind of shit
bad
he would
at
say. Yeah, I'm down to 0.4% body fat. So yeah, I go down to his basement and he's got his little workout area, which is like a bench, like an adjustable bench, and then just two 50-pound dumbbells. It's the only thing. Just doing like one fucking swinging curl with his fucking piggly arms, and that's his whole exercise regimen.
Fuck.
Well, I'm good. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm
We got
glad
some
I
nice
remembered
stuff.
him. We'll save Tom Flood for the. I'm glad. You know what's funny? I was trying to like pick my brain, trying to think of like a shitty comic I haven't shit on yet.
I'd love to. Maybe next episode we'll get into really deep into Dave Schofer.
Yeah, Dave's
He's
good.
a fucking.
Dave's
gem,
always
dude.
been nice to me, but
Oh.
apparently people fucking
Are
hate
you
him.
kidding? Oh, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Uncle
Plain
Dave
joke.
comedy.
Uncle Dave
Yeah.
comedy, dude.
Well, Tom Flood. Why I brought up Tom Flood is because Tom Flood, and it sort of ties into Diesel. Tom Flood was this guy with like who was severely autistic. He wasn't high functioning autistic. He could like barely communicate with you, and he pushed carts at like the Safeway down Route 7 or something. And he would come to Wiseacres for the open mic, and he would go on stage and do his time, but it wasn't jokes or anything, and everyone would laugh at him. And like, but people, so half of it was people being like, "We're being supportive," or "This is avant-garde," and it's like, no, you're laughing at an autistic man.
Right,
This is
right,
exploitation. That's all
Right,
it is.
right,
For sure.
And like one time he went on stage and he fucking like dragged. He spent the first 2 minutes of his set dragging tables from like the audience onto the stage, and he lines them up and puts 4 chairs behind them. And he's like, "Oh, the 1984 NBC4 afternoon news broadcast from September 13th." And he's like, Mitch Douglas sat here and Kate, and he reenacts some afternoon news broadcast from like 1984 that he remembers, and it's not jokes or anything.
Hell yes.
And I remember Mike Diesel, like he was like, "I'm telling you, if you brought that act on the road, it would kill. He is a genius." And it's like, no, Mike. If you brought that act on the road,
Jesus
it
Christ.
would kill. That is Andy Kaufman level genius. It's like, no, you're just fucking laughing and disabled.
Oh God.
Yeah, he's so dumb, dude. Twitey met him. I saw Twitey at a party, and he was like, "Do you know this Mike Diesel guy?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, dude, I know Mike." And he's like, "Yeah, I just worked with him." He's like saying he's been a comic for 30 years, and like, he's like, "I only got 4 teeth left." But like you could see all of Mike's teeth, so Mike was literally lying through his teeth. Which is great. We're gonna have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Now,
All right.
that's more than enough time. Thanks for listening to Come Town.